Okay. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction for Bridget. So Bridget Betts is my best friend, yes, but she also is an LA Unified teacher, has been there for 9 years, was doing an out of classroom position. Some of my students have already asked a lot of questions. We already lectured on what it is and what you need to do to be a gen ed teacher, but it's better from your mouth, I'm sure. It looks like you're at school. So if you could just tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing now currently, and then we can get into student questions, would be awesome. So go for it, Bridget.
Hi, I am Bridget Betts. I was a teacher for about 9 years. I am now an instructional coach at Cohasset Elementary in Van Nuys. I have taught kindergarten, TK, second grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, all over the board. I think the only ones I haven't taught are first and third. I also taught sixth grade math for a summer. Yeah, so that's my history with LUSD. It'll be my 10th year next year.
Which is crazy. I remember when you were in your program, when you were doing your master's degree and finishing up, and it felt like, it still feels like yesterday. So
Yeah, I've done two.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So can you tell my students a little bit about the master's program that you specifically did at Pepperdine?
sure. I did a master's in elementary education with my multi-subject credential. I think most schools, because your students may not know this, but California is one of those very unique states that does not offer an education major as an undergraduate major. So the way a lot of teachers are getting their credentials, or at least when I went, was by getting a master's with the credential, and they went hand in hand. I later went back and got a master's in administration as well, but that is a story for a different day. But yeah, so I did a 2-year master's program. Most of the schools are offering a 1-year program. I just was not in the place to do that because I had a toddler at the time. So yeah, here I am.
Yeah. So what would you say? Also, can you tell the students a little bit about if the requirements for the tests have changed? I know that you and I have chatted about that and just kind of the need for teachers and how that's kind of been
Heard that they lifted some of the requirements, but I don't really want to speak to it because I don't know exactly where they're at now or what requirements exactly were lifted. I had heard that maybe the CBEST, was it the CBEST or the CSAT? One of the tests was, temporarily, you didn't have to do it. I don't know, but I don't really want to say because I don't know. As far as I know, there is a teacher shortage. I know a lot of teachers that are getting hired as interns, district interns right now. Schools are really, really, really hard up for teachers. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how that's gonna pan out, but I know that a lot of teachers are getting hired on, even my son has a sub right now, a long-term, and they're letting him take the class for the rest of the year because even though he's on a sub credential and he's only supposed to do 30 days, but then they gave him an extension. So it was allowed to be 100 days, but his 100 days expires at the beginning of May. And somehow the school is allowing him to stay for the rest of the year. Typically as a sub, you wouldn't be able to do that, but because they're allowing people to extend their sub time.
Yeah, it is interesting. So that is a good question. Someone had asked earlier about subbing. So do you know LA Unified's requirements to sub currently?
As far as I know, you only need to have a bachelor's and a CBEST to get a sub credit. You have to have a sub credential through the CDE. But I believe to get the sub credential, which is a 30-day credential, meaning that you can't teach any class more than 30 days. So like, that's the whole year. Like, so if I took a sub job, I mean, I have a real credential, but if I took a sub job, if I was a sub and I took a job because a teacher, I couldn't take a long-term position as a sub with a sub credential because typically long terms are longer than that. Like someone's on maternity leave or has a long-term illness or is taking care of a sick family member. If they're out for more than 30 days and you have a sub credential, you can't cover that class. You would need to have a full teaching credential to be a long term.
Makes sense. So I think Ashley, that was your question, right? About
As far as I know, it's a bachelor's and a CSET or CBEST.
bachelor's in C best, not
Yeah,
C
that's
best.
the easier one. Mhm.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
You have to
And
get credentialed through the state.
yeah, can you tell us about the RICA exam too and what that is?
The RICA is, please don't ask me what the acronym stands for. Reading Instruction Something Assessment, RICA.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's basically a test that checks for your understanding of how kids learn to read. So you know, I was in okay, so I explained how I did a 2-year program and most people did a 1-year program. So in order to be in a classroom as a full-time teacher, you have to take the RICA. I found the RICA to be quite easy because I actually took it after I'd done all of my coursework on reading instruction. And I had a little bit of experience in a classroom through my observation. I think you have to take it before your student teaching, if I remember. But because I had that experience and I had all the coursework, for me, the RICA was very easy. People who took the RICA ahead of all that and decided to take it before they started their program, they really struggled with it because they hadn't been in a classroom and they hadn't taught reading and they hadn't done the coursework. So it's a lot of theory. It's a lot of identifying problems and solutions. It'll give you specific case studies, mistakes that like an error analysis, what mistakes a student's making when they're reading, tells you to analyze that, tell us what they're struggling with. Is it a phonemic awareness problem? Is it an auditory problem? Is it an orthographic processing problem? Is it what kind of problem is it? And how would you address it in the classroom? What are the strategies you would use to address that issue with that student? So that's sort of what the RICA is. It sounds a little harder than it is if you've been in a classroom and you've worked with kids and you've taught reading or read about teaching reading.
Makes sense to me. So I just have a question too about, I know we were talking about this a little while ago, and you and I have definitely talked about this ad nauseum, I feel like at some points, but how do you earn salary points for LA Unified? And is there a cap of like how much you can do per year? How does that whole salary point system work for teachers?
So basically, if you come in with a bachelor's degree, you come in with 0 points. Every postgraduate unit you take is 1 salary point. So if you took 32 units for a master's degree, it is 32 units towards your salary points. The maximum that you can have is 98. I had 2 master's degrees and still didn't fill my salary points. So I still had to take extra LAUSD classes. You can also, there's paid classes you can take. They're pretty easy to get. I do gifted. I have a gifted special. I'm like a gifted specialist. So I have I take all the gifted classes every year and I get salary points for those. You just have to really seek them out and they're not that hard to find. But yeah, they do tell you, this is a rule that if you come into LAUSD after 10 years and you do not have your salary points maxed out, that you are leaving money on the table because your 5-year salary jump doesn't start until you have all your salary points. So if I get to year 10 and I don't have all of my salary points, basically I can't hit my next salary level until 5 years after I get all of my salary points. So the biggest deal is if you're a teacher for 10 years, you better have all your salary points
Makes sense.
so that you can get raises every 5 years.
You said something about a specialty for students that are gifted. Can you explain what that is to my students too?
Well, I just have a genuine interest in gifted teaching. Gifted and talented is a whole branch of LAUSD. Every district in the country has, gifted kids. LAUSD actually has the most extensive gifted program in the entire nation. Kids can be identified for anything from the arts to leadership and creativity to individual individually identifying them as gifted in math or in English or in, they can just be high achieving, they can be intellectual ability, they can be highly gifted. There's a lot of ways that kids can get identified as gifted in USD. And there's a lot to learn about gifted students. And I feel like gifted students, even though you think, oh, these gifted kids, they're really high achieving and they're doing really well. Just from personal experience, I know that these kids are often really underserved and misunderstood. We assume that gifted kids are really high achieving, and we assume that they're always getting really great grades, and they're just these cookie cutter kids that are awesome and everybody wants to teach. But in reality, a lot of them are really, really tough to teach, and a lot of them have major challenges. There's a whole group of kids in our district that are twice exceptional, meaning that they have special needs and they're gifted. They might have ADHD and they're gifted. They might have autism and they're gifted. So I really love learning about how we can serve those kids better, because they don't get any funding. You have Title I kids, they get a ton of funding. You have kids that are homeless and foster youth and all those kids get a ton of money. Special needs, they get a ton of money. Where I grew up, gifted kids were treated as students with special needs. And unfortunately here they do not. We get $0 for our gifted kids, zero. So, and another thing is I feel like gifted kids are underrepresented with minority students, because LAUSD is primarily a minority district. If you go to a school, if you go to these really affluent schools, you're going to find lots of gifted kids. You might have a 28% gifted population. Whereas you go to my school, and we're considered a tip school right now, meaning we're targeting finding gifted kids, because we don't have any. We have like less than 5 kids in my entire 500 kid campus that are gifted. And that's not the case. It's just that they're not identified. So we're trying to focus on identifying those kids. So
I'm gonna ask you one more question. Whoa, hello. I don't know if that was near you, but hey, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm gonna open it up to my students' questions. So the last thing, I know you've been doing something very different this year for the district. So can you talk to my students about your out of classroom position you're doing and why you're doing that currently?
I am now an instructional coach, meaning that I am basically, my job is to teach teachers, model lessons for teachers, model quality instruction. I also do intervention with students. This year has not been a typical year for my job, because ideally those are the things that I'm supposed to be doing. But in reality, I'm not doing most of those things. I've been doing a lot of COVID response. I've been doing a lot of parent meetings. I've been doing a lot of things that aren't really in my job description, but when you're out of classroom, those are the things you take on. I'm also the testing coordinator and the gate coordinator. I just finished LPACing 250 kids. I don't know. I'm supposed to be in an intervention program right now, but here I am with you. I am. But no, ideally my job is to train teachers, but if you do take a job with LAUSD, you'll know that your job is never really only what's in the job description. It's all kinds of craziness, but I really love my job. I love, showing teachers how to implement technology in their classrooms. I love modeling small group instruction. I came to the school and no one was teaching in a small group, and I have all of my upper grade teachers now teaching all their math in small groups, which is really great because that's how the kids are learning best. I think it's almost like if you're a student teacher, you have a mentor teacher, they'll show you the way they do things, and then you kind of model, and then you'll sort of develop your lessons and take what somebody taught you and take what works for you and feels comfortable for you and sort of meld them together. I'm sort of that mentor teacher, but for 25 teachers on my staff.
All right, does anyone have questions for Bridget? Shannon?
What does student teaching look like?
What does student teaching look like is the question, Bridget?
I'm not sure how it looks now, but when I was student teaching 10 years ago, your first half would have been completely observation. You do, I think it's 6 or 8 weeks of observation in a classroom at either a primary or a upper elementary. If you're doing elementary, I assume it would be a primary or an upper elementary grade. If you're doing secondary, it would be either a middle school or a high school. And then for your second half, which is a full, I want to say 12 weeks, you actually take over the classroom. You are the teacher. You are doing all the lesson planning, you're doing all the grading, you're setting the standard in the classroom, you're doing all the management. And really the master teacher only steps in if there's an issue. They may, and they'll give you feedback. They'll tell you how they think it's going. And yeah, I think, so the thing is that they want you to have different experiences. So if you're going for a secondary credential, I believe either your observation, if it's in middle school, your takeover has to be in high school, or vice versa. With elementary, it's the same thing. I did my observation in kinder. And then for my takeover, I had to do it in upper elementary. So I got assigned 5th grade. You don't usually get to pick. You don't get to pick your master teacher. Some could be great. Some could be horrible. I had that experience. I had a wonderful kindergarten teacher that I got to observe. And then I had a really horrific 5th grade teacher that told me everything I was doing was wrong. And now I have the same job as her, which is kind of crazy.
That happens, right, Bridget?
She became a principal and then she got demoted.
Oh, well, there's probably a reason for that.
I spit out my drink. Sorry. You're the first person I told that to.
It's okay. You just told my whole class, but it's fine.
I just found that out.
Yeah, it's all good. Anyone else have any questions? I saw some other hands. Mary, did you have a question? Yeah, go for it.
Just, what advice do you have for anyone entering the field?
All right, so the question is, do you have advice for anybody trying to enter the teaching field right now? Look at that face. I know, Bridget, you're killing me.
I mean, I mean, if you love it, if it's your passion, do it. If it's not your passion, run away. I mean, it's like
great advice.
It's a horrible thing to say. I was just talking about this with my principal. I'm like, I don't know that I would encourage anyone to be a teacher right now. It's like, I love it and it's rewarding. And I'm so happy that I get to do this job every day, but it's there's such high expectations. And especially if you're planning on living in Los Angeles for the rest of your life and you're not independently wealthy, it's like, you feel like you're doing a lot of this for like very little reward. So like marry rich, I don't know.
Oh my God. Oh boy. Yes. So we were just talking about that before you came on.
Oh, okay. Cause like, I feel bad telling your students this, but like, I'm gonna be honest too. It's like
Sean Watson's, big contract and how teachers are getting absolutely a drop in the bucket comparatively. And it's disgusting how we're doing that. So
but I have to say I love my job and it's really rewarding and I'm really happy when I go home every day and like I feel like I'm contributing to society and I mean I'm doing okay, like I'm not dying, I'm a single mom and I'm not drowning, but like been in it for a while. If I had to do this as a first year teacher, I'd be drowning. You know what I mean? Like it took me a while and I get I'm out of the classroom and I get a lot of opportunities for overtime. So for a brand new teacher, you're gonna be living with your parents for a while, I hope. I don't know.
Bridget, you're killing me right now. Okay. This is why she's here with us, right? All right, I think we have time for like one more. Taylor, did you have a question? Anyone else have any questions for Bridget? Okay, so thank you for.
Anybody want a job? Please send them my way.
That is true. So your contact information is on Canvas for my students already. So if you guys if you do have other questions, but also Bridget, is your school hiring or?
Yes, we're hiring supervision aides right now.
So TAs, yeah?
Not TAs, but we will be hiring TAs for next year.
Okay, what do they need to be a supervision aide?
Supervision aide, nothing. They just have to go. A pulse.
Oh my goodness.
I know, horrible. You guys got me at the end of the day. This has been it. I spent the afternoon in kindergarten classroom with like 6 flipping out children.
Bridget, what school are you at? My students are wondering what school you're at.
I'm at Cohasset in Van Nuys. We are on right by the Flyaway, if you know where that is. We're literally around the corner from the Flyaway. So yeah, we're hiring supervision aides. Basically they watch the kids outside on the playground, walk them to and from class, watch them at lunch,
Do you know the pay rate by chance? That's
Mm,
always,
I don't know. I feel like it's like $16 an hour or something, but TAs, it's a little different. It's a little higher. And, but TAs have to be enrolled in school, which obviously all of your students are.
Yep.
That's why we actually were looking for TAs all year, but we had to, we closed the positions and spent the money because
because you have to.
if you don't spend it, they take it back.
That is very
So
true.
we couldn't find TAs, so we had to close it. But yeah, we will be hiring TAs for next year.
Awesome. So can they reach out to you via email? Is that cool if they have questions?
That'd
Great.
be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bridget. I appreciate your candid
Thank you.
honesty as always. So
It's embarrassing.
thank you very much. And I need to see you sooner rather than later, by the way, in real life. Okay.
Yeah. I'm on spring break as of.
Oh, yeah. Let's hang out. Love your life.
Disneyland.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.